Who's ready to rumble? So this is part 3, and I was trying to package this series in a way that made us understand, not just a message that made us feel good when we went home, but there had to be some practical advice tailed into this whole concept. Because who knows, if you've lived on this earth longer than an hour, there's some stuff you have to go through, and there's some change in your life, and there's things that happen that are out of our control, or that, like we learned last week, are in our control, and we need to figure out how to figure that out. But one of the things I want to talk about tonight is growing through what you go through is centered around 2 very important elements of your life. So number 1 is to grow through what you go through, it's always going to be centered around your ability to change. Ability to change is a big part of you growing through what you have to go through. You have to have your ability to change, and we talked about the last couple of weeks. But tonight, the second thing I wanted to talk about, what helps you grow through what you go through, the second most important thing apart from change, is your commitment, everybody say commitment, to your, everybody say community. Change and what you go through is centered around your commitment to your community. Let me elaborate on that. Your commitment to your friendships, your commitment to your family, your commitment to the church family, the commitment to the relationship in your life determines how well you will go through things in your life. What you do for others and what others have done for you plays a massive role in how you grow through what you go through. In Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, it says here, and you know the verse, maybe people online don't know the verse, but I'm going to share it anyway. It says here, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, everybody say down, falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? So you can see the premise I'm saying tonight. Grow through what you go through centers around 2 things. Change is what we've talked about the last 2 series, the last 2 parts. But tonight I want to focus on your commitment to your community. And so you have to understand, I broke this into 3 points. You have to understand that what you go through and what you're growing through is heavily tied to who you're doing it with. Yeah. It's almost impossible to do it any other way. Who you're connected to, where you spend your time, whoever you're with, is heavily connected with how you go through something. So I broke down the 3 points. Point number 1 I'm going to talk about tonight, and I hope this speaks to you. But point number 1 tonight, for growing through what you go through. The who in your life changes the how. The who's in your life will change the how in your life. The who you're with changes the how you get through what you're going through. And I want you to think about this because we have friends and we have relationships and we try to just go through life. But the who in your life, the who's in your life play a massive part in the hows you get through what you're doing. See, if that's the case, and I believe it is, then I'm all of a sudden rethinking my who's. Because the who's in my life are the ones that are going to show me how to get through what I go through. So you've got to ask yourself tonight, who is in my life right now? And the second question you've got to ask is, how strong is that relationship? And how good is that relationship? Because relationships, and now listen to this, relationships matter, but they are hard to have. Relationships are vital, but they take a lot of work. And most of us are happy not to have too many relationships in our lives. But I want to ask you this question tonight. How strong are your friendships? How strong is your relationship with your family? How strong is your relationship with persons of professional advice? How strong is your relationships with persons of spiritual advice? How strong is your relationship with people around you that will not only help you, but they change you and push you to grow and encourage you never to give up. So you can go through something. You can try to grow through something you go through, and I believe it is a challenge we will have to face. But who will release the how? You have to, this is important because we want to get good with God. We want to be right with God. We want to stand in front of God and say, I love you, God, I love you, God, I love you, God. But when you are not connecting with the who's, the how becomes very challenging. God will look after you and God will walk through you with the valley shadow of death. God will be by your side. But the who's in your life will show you the how. The who's in your life. And so I started to unpack this. Who is your spiritual guidance? Now, it could be this church. It could be something you watch online. Who is your professional help? It could be you're looking for a financial breakthrough. You're looking for professional help with your mental health. Who are the people you go to? And we can't just live as Christians. We can't just go through life and hope that God will put a Band-Aid on things because the who's change the how. And I know this might be an unpack because we love God and God's awesome and God's going to look after us. But He also wants us to be close with others, not just close with Him. The who changes the how. You want to figure out how to go through something in life. You want to grow through it. Sometimes it seems impossible because you don't have the right who's. The who's will help you with the hows. Just this season I've been in with Kirsten and breaking my ankle. I'll just tell a little bit of a story. When I first broke my ankle, I'm not going to lie to you, my mental health was not good. I was in doubt. I was trying to rethink the scenario, if I could have left the pool later. I just had, I don't know if anyone's had an injury before or have done something stupid, and they try to rethink what they could have done, or why did this happen to me? And so when I was lying in bed and I'm full of anger at myself, and I had a lot of pain, and I had regret, and I was trying to undo what I'd done, there was someone in my circle that constantly messaged me and checked up on me every day. They encouraged me to never give up. They encouraged me to stick at my rehab, and they encouraged me with my mental health. They even encouraged me in the what if moments. And I will tell you this right now. I hadn't even worked out the how, but the who. That person in my circle that messaged me every day got me to the how. It made me push through to what I had to do. I had doubt that I could do this. I had regret that I had done this, but the who released my how. And when I figured that out, that this person from my circle never missed a day, just messaged me every day and said, how are you doing today? They didn't fix my leg. They didn't do anything that changed my life. Just being there, the who, made me believe in the how. And I believe that now, that what I've gone through was plan and purpose. See, the who you're with changes the how you get through it. People don't need to know what you're going through all the time. That person didn't know that I was struggling with my bed rest. It didn't matter though, because when they're in your circle, they're in your corner. And they didn't know that I was looking at the right roof going, why I'm going crazy in this bed. They just knew, hey Sam, how you going today? I'm going to check up on you. So they don't need to know what's going on in your life. They don't need to always know where you're going. But when you put good people in your circles, it creates a safe place. And these days, there was these days where Kirsty was even having a bad day herself, and someone just dropped off a meal. That one meal changed the dynamic of our whole day. They had no idea about my day. They had no idea about hers. But the who's changed the hows. And I tell you this story for one reason, not to say we were looked after, but what you do for others matters. And what people do for you matters. And you don't have to see someone suffering to help them. The who's, the circles, changes the hows. Kirsty didn't believe. Maybe she thought, I'm not doing well today. But a meal made her say, I'm going to do well today. The who opens the house. Everybody say the who's opens the house. The who you're with changes the how we live. And it matters. Point number 2 I want to talk about tonight is, and this one's a tricky one, because this is the one I was writing and I was going over with God, and it's a hard one to not understand, but to accept and say, you know what? Okay, I'm happy to run with this, because my second point tonight is the hurt makes the help. Everybody say the hurt. The hurt makes the help. To help people grow through what they're going through, your experience will help their existence. I want you to listen to what I just said there. Your hurt can help. Your experience helps somebody else's existence. So what you go through and what you're growing through can help somebody as well. Your hurt makes the help. What you go through and the experiences you have and the things you grow through can help others. Your hurt makes the help. So anything you've gone through, and I want you to listen to this, church, anything you've gone through isn't a waste. This is why this is a hard one to take in. Because life hurts. Things go wrong. You've been here longer than an hour on earth, it doesn't always work out. But God somehow turns that hurt into help.
Yeah, so true.
Your experience helps somebody's existence. And if you've gone through something and you're going through something right now, listen to my heart on this. As you grow through what you go through, that very thing will help somebody. And I want to reconfirm to you tonight that anything you're going through is not a waste. Listen to me on this. Whatever you're going through tonight, or whatever you're going through, is not a waste. Your hurt can help. There's a good chance right now, church, that there's someone you know that is going through something you've been through. Or there's someone you know that is about to go through something you've been through. Your hurt can help. I want you to think about the thing that's hurt you the most. Whether it's someone's offended you, whether it's someone that's fired you, whatever it is, you will know your story, you'll know the hurt. And feel what it felt like when that happened. And sometimes we say to you, get rid of it, forgive and move on. But I want you to feel what that felt like. And think, someone I know feels the same way. Someone I know's been through that at their work. Someone I know's had that same relationship problem. Someone I know. So all of a sudden that becomes a weapon that your hurt can bring help, and it allows us to help people get through what they're going through. I don't know if you're hearing me tonight because you're quiet. Your hurt can help. It can help. It's not a waste. You haven't wasted your time and you haven't wasted your life. Your hurt can help. And I guarantee you someone in your circle is going through something similar. Whew. So, let me recap before I get to point 3. The who changes the how. Who you're connected to changes how you get through it. The hurt you've been through helps. You're starting to see the importance of community. The importance of us gathering. The point of us being together. The importance of us looking after each other. And the third one I want to talk to you about tonight is the where changes the why. Everybody say the where. The where changes the why. In Hebrews 10:24, it says here, and let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. See, the where you spend your time contributes to how you go through things in your life. I'm convinced of it. I am sold out on it. I never used to understand it, but I'm convinced now that where you put your time, the where you spend your time, is the make or break of how you get through life's challenges. I wrote here, I wasn't going to put this in my notes, but I did. You hang around bad places, you'll get bad results. you hang around good places, you get good results. So, church, where is the habit of where you go? And I'm going to get a little bit deep with this one because this one's very vital to us growing through what we go through. Where you spend the most time contributes to how you go through what you go through. And if you struggle with life, or you struggle with mental health, or you struggle with financial breakthrough, or you struggle with marriage problems, what you're going through is heavily tied to where you spend your time. Like, it's heavily tied. It's like going to the nightclub every Saturday night trying to find love, and I know that happened for me, but I'm rare. It's a miracle. But there was times where I've looked for things in the wrong place, and I never got what it just didn't line up. And so I've realized that the where changes the why, and where you spend your time changes what you go through. If you are looking for a financial breakthrough, you're looking for a mental health breakthrough, whatever it is, the where will be clear about the why. So what you're going through is tied to where you spend your time. Let me just ask you this. Ask yourself right now, where do I spend the most time? What's it doing? Is it the pub? Just throwing it out there. Is it gaming? Is it some other hobby? It could be wherever you spend the most time will contribute to what you're going through. Is it? I'm just trying not to pick on anyone. Because they're like, hey, I play golf. And it's like, it's okay to do these things. I'm just trying to break this down for you. I'll do my testimony, and then you can fill in the blanks. For me, this is where I spent my time changed the why. I had no idea why. Listen to me on this one. I had no idea why I felt how I felt. I had no idea why that life was making me go through this. I had me trying to grow through what I go through was heavily tied to where I spent my time. And I didn't realize this, and the revelation I got from this changed everything I thought about how I do things. The where I spent my time, whether it's I spent more time in his presence, or I spent more time in his house, or I spent more time with his people, where I spent time mattered to the why I was going through what I go through. So this is what I had to do. For me, I had to put down isolation and learn to pick up community. Because before I broke my leg, I was happy just to isolate myself. When I'd finished church, to isolate myself from people, to isolate myself from, I had to force myself to go, you know what? I'm going to put down isolation. I'm going to pick up community. And I have to build relationships with real friends, not associates. I had to find real friends. Because where I spend my time is tied to how I get through what I'm going through. If I isolate and I have depression, and if I isolate and I have marriage problems, and if I isolate and I have financial problems, and I isolate and I'm caught up in my own world and I'm caught up in my own thing, my marriage suffers, everything suffers. So where I spend my time breaks the why. I had to put down self-indulgence and activities and pick up a priority to involve myself in other people's lives. I want you to listen to this one for a second. Because when life sucks, and it does sometimes, we will isolate. We will move away from church community. We move away from each other. We go away from whatever our circles are. And we might, I'm not saying pubbing, gaming, golfing, whatever it is, those things are great. We got to have balance in our lives. But if that's all we do, and we neglect our marriage, and we neglect, our friends, and we neglect our church community, and whatever it is, if it neglects people, we're in trouble. we're in big trouble, because where releases the why. And where you spend the most time is heavily connected to your why. So I had to put down self-indulgence and activities and pick up a priority to involve myself in people's lives. So against what I wanted to do. But I knew that if I spent time in the right presence with the right people. Now, I had God. I can still isolate and have God's presence. Don't get me wrong on this. I want you to listen to this, church. Listen to this very clear. I can isolate, never go out to dinner, never spend time with people. And Kirsty, she'll tell you this. I'm not backward. I'm not insecure about talking about where I've come from the last 3 years. I would isolate myself from people. I'd do church and then I'd isolate. This is my testimony coming out. And I was good with God. I felt His presence and I spent time with Him. But my depression, my anxiety, my thought process, everything. When our marriage was having a rocky road, when I have no community, when I have no one, and I'm spending my where I spend my time is isolating, it is not beneficial for my why. Are you keeping up with what I'm saying with this? And so where releases the why. So when I start to spend time with people that also are married or people that also have financial, when I start to get into these worlds and I start to break out of my bubble and break out of my circle, my self-indulgence, and I pick up the priority, say, you know what, I don't feel like it today, but I'm going to go to lunch. I don't feel like it today, but I'm going to meet with them. I don't feel like it today, but I'm going to go to church. I don't feel like it today, but I'm going to meet with someone. Where I spend my time releases the why and helps me grow through what I go through. You got to listen to this, because I don't know if this is a tough message. I feel like it's tough, but for me, we're very, very good with God and we suck with people sometimes. And you can still be depressed and have God in your life, and you can still have hardship and have God in your life. God can still exist in all aspects of your life, but He wants you to connect with people and He wants you to find community. And I had to put down self-indulgence and pick up priority of people's lives. I had to put down running away from problems and change and pick up and hang out with people that force me into facing change and force me to face my problems. I had to. You see how important the how now is? It's like the how is the who is the how. When things are hard, do you go get professional help? Do you get spiritual help? Do you get friendship help? What happens? Then the second one is the pain that you have can now release and help other people. But the third one is where you spend the most time is heavily tied to what you're going through. And you have to go against that. You have to break out of that. Where you spend the most time. If I spend too much time, so where I'm spending time, you got to listen to this. I'll just use an example. If I spend too much time doing this, just say it's nothing to do with my marriage, but I just do this. Where I spend my time, and one day I go, well, why is my marriage working? Because where I spend my time is heavily connected to what I'm going through. Does that make sense? Is that coming out clear? Where you spend your time is heavily connected to sometimes the things that go wrong in our lives. You know, if I feel like no one's there for me, have I put in effort to be there for others? It's heavily connected. It's where I'm putting myself. My where releases the why. So the where will change your why. You ever ask why you're going through something? You ever ask why it's happened? You ever ask why you have to go through what you go through? It's normally associated to your where. For me, I want to spend time with God's people. I want to spend time with God's in God's house. I want to spend time with friends and positive. Like I got to push into that because it's so easy to get away from that. Because my where is connected to my why. Does that make sense? I had to change where I spent my time so I could understand why I was going through and growing through what I was going through. So let's recap. And I don't know if you want to watch this later or you write down tonight. Everyone's going through something. And everyone's growing through something. I've never met anyone that hasn't. So I'm not guessing tonight that someone's got something on in their lives. I know we're all growing. We're all going through what we go through. But you need to find some who's in your life. whether it's financial advice, whether it's marriage advice, whether it's spiritual advice. And sometimes you might not like their advice, but you have to find the right who's. They'll help you with the hows. You're like, how do I get out of this? They'll help you. You're having a sucky time in a relationship, find someone that knows how to work relationships. They'll show you the how. Find the who's. Looked at the roof when I broke my leg, thinking, what the hell? I can't get through this. But a who reminded me I could. I'll get you through the how. Second thing is, whatever you're going through, whether you're currently in it or you're still going through it, that hurt brings help. It helps people. And I don't want you to think it's ever gone to waste, or that what you've gone through is a waste of time, or what's happened to you is a waste. Your hurt can help. And the third one is where is heavily connected to your why. Where you spend your time the most. If you spend more time, just trying to think, I'm bad with examples tonight, because I've tried not to be personal with anyone, because I was writing this message, I was like, this is personal, God. If I spend too much time at the nightclub, I'm just picking on that, and not enough time in his house, I guarantee you it changes the way I live. The where's changes the whys. I'm telling you that now. You spend too much time, I'll pick on Geordie. You watch too much cricket, mate. Listen to me. I was trying to find someone to pick on. You watch too much cricket and you don't spend time with Bronte, and the relationship gets rocky after the beautiful engagement party. The where is connected to the why. Spend more time with her. I'm not saying he does that. I'm just saying. I just knew he's tough enough to take it. Any hobby, anything you do, it has to be balanced. It has to be where you spend your time. And if you feel like, sometimes you feel like God's not with you, and you're like, well, I've missed gathering and he's like at his church for the last 6 Sundays, it's connected. It's all connected. If you feel like you're lonely, but you haven't been reached out to anyone, or you haven't asked someone to go out to lunch, or you haven't offered to bring a meal around, it's connected to where you spend your time. So as the band comes, I'll leave us with this. I'm not a lot nicer in part 2, wasn't I? I thought I'd sandwich this into, don't worry, next week will be great. I just think that sometimes we do need to hear truth, and truth does set us free, and it set me free. I used to isolate and I used to avoid people, but I was good with God. And I thought if I was good with God, then I'm good. I didn't realize how much I was suffering in life, because I had to get good with people. I had to get good with people. I had to do that. I had to hear advice that I didn't want to hear. I had to take advice that I didn't want to take. I had to push myself into this world. So together, we are better. And what you go through and how you grow through it is balanced on who you do it with. And in 1 Peter 3:8-9, it says here, finally, all of you, be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing. Now, this is a very people-focused Bible verse. Don't repay evil with evil, because when you're growing through what you go through and someone's hurt you, you don't repay it. You repay it with blessing. You be humble. You have compassion for others. You love each other. So we need to listen to these 3 things I just want to say, and I'm going to wrap this up. To grow through what you go through when it comes to community, whether it's church community or your circles outside of this room, you always got to remember, for the person next to you, be kind to each other. Have grace for each other. And bless each other. Be kind to each other. Have grace for each other. Bless each other. We need to be known for this as a church. as a people. We need to be known for this. So no matter what happens or what people go through, we have grace for their decisions. Listen to this. Because we're talking about grow through what you go through, and we talked about how some things are our fault and some things aren't our fault. You have to have grace for both those. Grace for their decisions, and we have to help them make moves. And we bless them on their journey. Find your who's. I did it. I'm living proof of it. It changed everything about me. And I've been good with God. I've known God for 10 years, but I haven't had the who's in my life for 10 years. And I'll tell you now, the 6 months I have has changed everything about me. The who's will release the how's. Sometimes I've talked to people and they feel like their pain or testimony was a waste, or they were hurt, or whatever happened. I just want to just steelly say that hurt will help. And it will help somebody else in our community. And someone else needs to hear your story. And someone else needs to know your compassion. And someone else needs to know what happened. Your hurt will help. And the last one, where you spend the most time is heavily tied to why you're going through what you go through. And if I want a good marriage, then sometimes I have to walk away from this thing and put more time into that. And if you want to have a healthy relationship with God, sometimes you have to step away from what the world's offering and step into His house. Sometimes you have to put down self-indulgence, like I had to do. This was one of my struggles, self-indulgence. When I say self-indulgence, it's just eating by myself, sitting on the lounge by myself and going to bed by myself. Well, not by myself, she was there. But the way I was thinking, and I said, you know what? Instead of sitting on the lounge, I'm going to find someone to sit with. I'm going to find someone to eat with. And they can be a spiritual leader, they can be a financial advisor, they can be a pastor, they can just be a friend to make me laugh. But it's very tied to where I spend my time. And so now I'm like, you know this, I'm like a social butterfly now. Like I want to go everywhere. Like I was frothing on the parties and all the things that happened this weekend. Because I figured out where changes how and the why of what I'm going through. And I can pray to God to take away my depression, or I can pray to God to help me have this breakthrough. I can pray to God and He'll answer and He'll get involved, but He really wants us to get connected. And sometimes there's places and things I had to push myself to go to. But when I came out of that lunch, or when I came away from that greeting, I was on top of the world, because where I spend my time is heavily connected. You can spend time with God at home, and I believe that. I'm not saying you have to be in church, but there is a power release when we gather together. You can have church at home. You can have God at home. And I'm not against that at all. I believe the Holy Spirit is everywhere and God is everywhere. And I'm not trying to fill seats. But I do know there's a power when we gather. And I do know there's a breakthrough when we gather. And I do know that where I spend my time changes the why I spend my time. You know what you're going through. You've got it in your head. You've got it in your mind. You know what you're going through. The answers are in this sermon. Find the who's, use the hurt, and spend the where's. Get more involved with what's going on. Was that tough? Was that nice? It was neither. It was truth. Truth that will set you free. Hey, I love you, church. This is a good church. Don't overestimate how good this church is. We've got to be people focused. We don't want to be Christians that are really, really good with God and we suck with people. We've got to be really, really good with people. Like, God's here tonight and you turned up probably for God. Start going, I'm turning up for God and people next week. I'm turning up for both. I don't want to feel God. I want to feel the presence of people. Amen? Love you, church. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let's worship and let's just see what God's going to do with us tonight. Thank you.